We are in Lincoln at the Nebraska Pork Producers Association annual meeting. We've been talking a lot about trade and policy. We're also talking about some of the diseases that we've been seeing. And joining us right now is Dr. Paul Sundberg, and he's the National Pork Board Vice President for Science and Technology. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about the PED virus. Why don't you give us a quick, brief overview on what that is?
Well, what the virus is itself. The virus is an enteric disease. It's a disease. It's a virus that attacks the intestine of a pig, and it will kill 100% of very small pigs that it infects. The older the pig gets, the more resistant it is. The virus came into the U.S. in May of 2013. We had, its best information that we have, maybe 50% or so of our sow herd became infected through 2013 and 2014. And at this point, we're at a very low level of infection. The virus is still out in the countryside. It's still infecting some sow herds, mostly finishing herds, and it seems that that's connected to putting pigs back and forth from markets, the transport of pigs to market, and then truck coming back to the farms. So right now we're at a very low level. Way more lower than we were in 2014, and we're hopeful that that'll stay.
So as producers, we know that it does like the cold, and so we've been a little worried this winter. How do you think we're going to go as we start heading towards spring? Best guess, because you don't really know.
Well, it's kind of like the markets. The past performance isn't a predictor of the future, but right now, we're coming into the middle of February, and we'll soon be to the 1st of March. And the virus is at a very low level. Our experience shows that last year, at this time of the year, we were about the highest amount of infections, the highest incidence of infections in the country that we had. And so last year at this time, cold weather, and the virus was hot and circulating. This year, at this time, it's cold weather, and we've got very low level of infections. So that's good news. I'm hopeful that will hang on through the spring and into the summer.
I think everyone's hopeful for that. And as we move forward and are being hopeful, what have we learned over this process with the virus?
Well, there are lessons that we've learned about the infection and about our response to the infection in the country. One of the things that we've learned is that we probably are never going to be able to find out exactly how it got into the country. And so if that's the case, then we aren't going to be able to stop another one from coming in either. We can't close that window. The window stays open, and there are other viruses that can follow. And so one of the lessons we need to learn is how can we be better prepared for the next one, rather than focusing all of our resources on trying to stop an infection in a virus, which we've learned from PED we can't. Focus those resources on being better prepared. And that means industry preparedness as well as state and federal preparedness also. But industry preparedness, and that includes things like being prepared with better diagnostics in our diagnostic labs, having better information about these viruses that may come in so we can better respond to them should they get here. The final thing I think we learned from this experience and this infection is that we as pork producers need to be working closely with our state animal health officials, the state veterinarians, and our federal animal health officials in USDA for a coordinated response to diseases as they come in.
Now, we also talked about the Swine Health Information Center. Why don't you tell us about that program?
Well, the Swine Health Information Center is really at the center of all of those things. The center of being better prepared, the center of being better coordinated, and the center of being able to better respond. The Swine Health Information Center is funded with checkoff money. The board of the National Pork Board has allocated $15 million over a 5-year period to fund the center. And so it'll be a separate entity in itself. It won't be just a pork board project. It'll be a separate entity. And the objectives of that center will be to fund the research that is needed to have us better prepared with diagnostics. It will be to form a global swine health network, information network, so we are better prepared with information about things that may be coming into the country, so we can understand those and use that research to help address those things. And then the last thing is that the center is going to help inform producers. It's going to be able to analyze swine health information in a secure manner, so it's not a risk for producer information being public, but in a secure manner that will analyze, epidemiologically analyze information, share that back with producers to help inform them better and their veterinarians about how to manage the health of the pigs on their farm.
So just to clarify, it's not a database, but it is a tool for them to use.
Yeah, I want to be very clear about that. It's not a grand database project. It's not trying to gather up all of this data everybody has and put it in one spot. We're going to use a new technology that is a computer technology that enables people to share their information and have it analyzed, but still have control of it. So the center will not have control or ownership of any of the information. It still will be producer information, for example, that about testing in diagnostic labs. If the producer gives permission for that to be accessed, it can be accessed, but it stays in the diagnostic lab, and we never have control of it. So it's never at risk for being made public.
You also said that starting from the beginning that we're still seeing some areas that do have the virus on facilities. What can producers do? Where can they go to get some information to combat issuing that and can work through that problem on their facility?
Yeah, we've been looking at the history and our current status, and wondering, trying to figure out why it is that the virus is so much different this year than it was last year. And I'd suggest that one of the reasons is that producers are doing a much better job with biosecurity. And that includes biosecurity on their farm, as well as biosecurity in transportation and other ways. And from the very start, we tried to put together the best information we could about biosecurity practices, about responding to the virus on the farm should you get an infection, about notifying your neighbors, about all the things that happen once you get an infection, either trying to contain it on your farm or keep it off of your farm to begin with, including biosecurity. So we put together a series of fact sheets. And those fact sheets are available on the pork.org website. We've got a special slot there for PED information, and it's there's probably 15 or 20 of them up there that cover the gamut from biosecurity with incoming pigs to emptying pits and putting the manure on the land as fertilizer, to biosecurity for trucks, to producers or visitors or service people or whoever, workers coming onto the farm. All of those things are the best recommendations that we could come up with, that the body of knowledge could come up with PED is available in those fact sheets.
All right, we appreciate Dr. Paul Sundberg talking to us today about the PED virus, and we are at the Pork Producers Annual Meeting, and Dr. Paul Sundberg is from the National Pork Board, and he's a Vice President of Science and Technology. You're listening to the Rural Radio Network, and I'm Jessie Harding.